The happiest day of my son's life was supposed to begin with a blessing. Instead, it became the day my own parents tried to take him away from me, and they had no idea. I had already uncovered the truth. My name is Emily Carter, and if you had asked anyone in our small Ohio town a year ago, they would have told you I came from the perfect family. My parents were respected church members, always smiling, always volunteering, always ready with a Bible verse for anyone who needed encouragement. To everyone else, they looked like saints. Only I knew what happened behind closed doors. The morning of my son Noah's christening, the church glowed with soft candlelight. Friends and relatives filled the pews, smiling as the choir rehearsed quietly. Noah slept peacefully in my arms, dressed in the white gown my grandmother had sewn decades earlier. For a few precious minutes, I convinced myself everything would be okay. Then my mother leaned close and whispered, "After today, Noah will finally be where he belongs." A chill ran through my body. "What does that mean?" I asked. She smiled without looking at me. "You'll find out soon enough." Before I could press her further, Father Michael welcomed everyone and invited our family to stand near the altar. My father stepped beside me, placing a firm hand on my shoulder. To anyone watching, it looked loving. It wasn't. His grip tightened just enough for me to hear him murmur, "Don't make a scene." Every warning bell in my mind started ringing. For weeks, little things hadn't made sense. My parents kept asking for copies of Noah's birth certificate. They wanted to know every appointment I scheduled. They even insisted they should become his legal guardians, just in case something happened. At first, I dismissed it as overprotective grandparents. Then I found something that changed everything. I had printed copies of those documents and sealed them in an envelope hidden inside my purse. If my parents forced my hand today, everyone in this church would learn exactly who they really were. As Father Michael reached out to begin the ceremony, my mother suddenly stepped forward and stretched her arms toward Noah. "I'll take him now," she said. The entire church fell silent. No one moved. The silence inside the church felt heavier than the stone walls around us. Father Michael lowered his hands, clearly confused. My mother kept reaching for Noah as if what she had just said was perfectly normal. "I said," she repeated calmly, "I'll take him now." I tightened my arms around my son and took a step back. "No." The single word echoed through the sanctuary. My father's polite smile disappeared. "Emily," he said in the same measured tone he always used before trying to control me. "This isn't the time to argue." "Then maybe you shouldn't have started one." Guests exchanged nervous glances. My husband Daniel moved beside me, placing a protective hand on my shoulder. "What's going on?" he asked. Before I could answer, my mother looked directly at Father Michael. "We've been trying to handle this privately," she said with a sigh. "Our daughter hasn't been making responsible decisions, and we're only thinking about what's best for Noah." A wave of whispers swept through the pews. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wasn't just confronting me. She was building a story. My father nodded solemnly. "We've spoken with professionals. We have reason to believe Noah would be safer with us until Emily gets her life together." Daniel stared at them in disbelief. "Are you serious?" he demanded. My mother ignored him. She had spent years mastering the art of looking like the victim. She even let a few tears roll down her cheeks. "I never imagined we'd have to do this in church," she said softly. "But sometimes grandparents have to make difficult choices." Several relatives looked at me with uncertainty. I recognized those expressions. My parents had already been talking to people before today. This wasn't a spontaneous outburst. It was a carefully planned performance, exactly as I had feared. I slowly slipped one hand into my purse, feeling the thick envelope hidden beneath Noah's blanket. Inside were emails, financial records, and signed documents that proved my parents' real motive had nothing to do with Noah's safety. They weren't trying to protect my son. They were trying to control something worth far more than anyone in that church could imagine. And in just a few moments, I was going to make sure every person in that sanctuary learned the truth. I looked around the sanctuary one last time. Some people avoided my eyes. Others looked at me with pity. My parents had spent months building their reputation in this church. They knew exactly how to appear concerned, generous, and selfless. If I had spoken without evidence, I would have looked like an angry daughter ruining her own son's christening. That was exactly what they were counting on. I took a slow breath and pulled the large manila envelope from my purse. "You've told everyone your version of the story," I said, my voice steady. "Now it's my turn." My mother's confident smile finally wavered. "Emily," she warned, "don't embarrass yourself." "I won't," I replied. but one of us is about to be embarrassed. I handed the envelope to Father Michael. I'd like you to look at these. The priest hesitated before opening it. Inside were printed emails, text messages, bank records, and copies of letters my parents never thought I would see. His expression changed with every page. "What is it?" one of my aunts asked. I faced the congregation. 3 months ago, my parents secretly met with a family attorney. They weren't trying to help me raise Noah. They were trying to convince people I was an unfit mother. Gasps echoed through the church. My father immediately shook his head. "That's a lie." "Is it?" I asked. I pulled out my phone and held it up. "I also have recordings." My mother's face turned pale. The day I found out they were requesting copies of Noah's medical records without my permission, I started documenting everything. Every phone call, every text message, every meeting. Daniel stared at my parents in disbelief. "You've been planning this for months?" Neither of them answered. I turned toward the guests. My parents didn't come here today hoping for a peaceful christening. They came believing that if they questioned my fitness as a mother in front of everyone, I'd panic, lose my temper, and make their accusations look true. A heavy silence settled over the sanctuary. Then Father Michael slowly removed one final document from the envelope. He read it twice before lifting his eyes toward my parents. "Would either of you care," he asked quietly, "to explain why you signed paperwork stating your intention to seek custody of Noah before today's ceremony?" For the first time that morning, my parents had no answer. The silence that followed felt endless. My parents looked around the sanctuary, searching for someone, anyone, to defend them. No one did. Father Michael carefully placed the documents back into the envelope and faced the congregation. "I believe today's ceremony should pause until this matter is properly addressed," he said firmly. "A christening is a celebration of love and family, not a place for deception." My mother's voice trembled for the first time. "Emily, please don't do this." I looked her straight in the eyes. "No," I replied. "You made this day public. I'm just telling everyone the truth." Daniel stepped beside me and wrapped an arm around my shoulders while Noah slept peacefully, completely unaware of the chaos around him. My father finally spoke. "We only wanted what was best for him." I shook my head. "No, you wanted control." I turned toward the guests. My parents told people I was unstable. They contacted lawyers without my knowledge. They tried to gather private records and planned to question my ability to raise my own son today, in front of everyone, hoping I'd lose my composure. Several relatives lowered their heads in disbelief. My aunt slowly stood up. "Is all of this true?" Neither of my parents answered. Their silence was louder than any excuse they could have made. One by one, family members walked away from them. The people who had believed their lies only minutes earlier now saw exactly who they were. Father Michael looked at me with kindness. "Emily," he said, "if you still wish to continue, it would be my honor to baptize Noah." Tears filled my eyes. "Yes," I whispered. The ceremony resumed. This time, surrounded not by judgment, but by people who finally understood the truth. As the holy water touched Noah's forehead, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of my parents. I wasn't afraid of their lies, and I certainly wasn't afraid to stand up to them. A few weeks later, my parents quietly withdrew every legal action they had planned. Their reputation in the community never fully recovered, and many of the relatives they had manipulated chose to distance themselves. Daniel and I focused on what truly mattered, raising Noah in a home built on honesty, not control. Looking back, I realized something important. The greatest revenge isn't humiliating the people who hurt you. It's refusing to let them control your future. If you've ever had to stand up to someone who thought they could control your life, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. And if you enjoy stories about family betrayal, justice, and satisfying karma, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Revenge Diaries, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story. Because sometimes, the truth is the only revenge you'll ever need.